Muy buenos dias, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. And as always, muchísimas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, prayers, and amazing support, especially on helping me get the message out there in the sense that could be something positive to deter those that have not gone on that road with no type of ending. Thank you. And do please like, share, and subscribe. Well, today I'm gonna touch on a little conflict one known Billy, Big Joe from Alley Boys, had with one that likes to stay in the shadows. Be more, you could say, discreet with his doings to some sense, but that he does have a lot of who. So I will be speaking of two heavyweights. Also, just to inform, the next three episodes they will connect. At the end, it's gonna close with Art Romo and the lies and things that led to what happened with him. As I've been asked numerous of times to touch on it, but the more I try to minimize it, there's a lot there. Gracias. But for this, I want to take you back. I don't know exactly what year it was, 2007, 8, which was when Weddle was being indicted. Weddle Sherm. As I said it many times, right? He had a lot of who. He was blessing a lot of Pilis, not just statewide, federal too. Mostly because there's a lot of San Diego Pilis, right, in the feds. But nevertheless, he was smart, right? He wasn't a greedy individual in that aspect. He knew how to cover, or knows, excuse me, how to cover his butt. But for those that know, when they did that Rico case on him, he's probably the one Billy that had the most Billys indicted with him, just in numbers, right? But again, it was due to who he was touching base with out of respect, right? But amongst these Billys, was Joe was in Victorville and Bobby got indicted. So they were there. When they were there, I was up in Pelican Bay, right? But of course, again, there was a lot of Billys indicted, so we're circulated back to the Bay on certain issues that were happening, which was a yard belonged to Joe, but for some reason or another, Bobby tried to take control, and not to make fun of it, but camaradas got hurt behind it. Basically, at the end, Bobby had Joe's llavero stepped down and he put his llaveros, right? And of course, Joe wasn't going to take it sitting down. So eventually, he pushed amongst his carnales that was his yard, Bennett's yard. Bobby had no right to set any type of mesa there without crossing it by Joe, right? Which is how it goes, first come, first serve. It's kind of that equal membership type of thing, right? But again, Bobby's a heavyweight. So the misunderstanding started there. You know, the Rico case went through, and within time, everybody split. They went to different pintas, right, per se. And you know, when uh, when I first hit the feds, excuse me, there was a avenue with Bobby, and it came down all the way from Oaxaca. Now he was the first Billy that I personally knew that was sitting in the feds and that had not one, two, but many pipelines, right, to different factions in Mexico. So he was able to play with prices and material. Remember, he's in the States. It's something rare, Usually they're able to tap with what's being offered to them, right? But I don't know how he was connected himself, right? So again, he had prices. So anyways, at this time he was in Coleman. Sorry if I mispronounced that. The USP in Florida. I'll just say it like that. He was there and he had the place sold up, right? But at this time, they were trying not to take power from a Billy. They're trying to do kind of like, a buddy buddy type of system. You could say like a mesa system in the state, right? But it was under the commission in the feds. So, the one that had that gusanito on him was Joe. Joe ain't a lightweight either, right? He has a lot of reach, a lot of feria goes through him. Just cause Bobby had the pipelines don't mean Joe with one pipeline and bringing the same, right? Anyways, Joe was the first one to press on that yard, right? That he wanted to see. He wanted a mesa there. It's kind of like a payback trip, right? It's that ego trip they carry with them when it should be left alone, right? Specifically because they're sitting in a place where they're guiding gente, and it's just you know, me sacaste la lengua, I'm gonna stick it back out to you, right? Type of thing. Joe never let go of Victorville. Anyways, he got up in there with the right permission to say per se to be there, right? But they couldn't work together. Again, there was bad blood amongst them both, right? So neither of them at this time Bobby had gotten moved. I'm not sure if he had gotten taken back to Victorville and he had taken that from Joe, right? And at least to the sense of having a mesa there, right? Because there's always Billy there. But Joe, moved on a homie, Gadget. Those that know him from Montebello. I just know he was from the town. I don't know exactly the hood, but he was from Montebello. And a camarada from Maravilla. Disculpen. Again, I was freshly arrived at the feds, right? So again, I was just side busting on conversations, right? Among senores. Oh no. How Joe basically moved on these two camaradas. He could have sat him down as Bobby did in Victorville at one point. He sat him down, but he didn't. He had him whacked, and if they came out again, they were going to get whacked one more time till they got the point. Just because he wanted to prove a point to his carnal. Because even if they were together, he can't do it. It's not permitted. It'd be looked out bad. But anyways, again, this yard, right, belonged to Bobby for I don't know how long. He himself was there at one point, and so he had a lot of gente. It's kind of that he was on the yard. I never been on the yard with them, so I couldn't tell you was a firme pili, was this, but for the uprising that happened with Joe's Mesa, I'm assuming it was a fair pili, right? For people to stand up for his name, right? When things are being done wrong. I guess the vato Joe put on that yard didn't answer to Joe. He answered to Crook, and Crook is, so they were doing way out stuff that the feds is a trip because you need a lot of different guidelines to follow, right? With the commission and different respectful Baileys, like at this time was Sana, Wedo Shy, well, numerous of them old Baileys, right, that had respeto on their word. But to now make a long story short, you know, the homie Mousy from La Habra was there, and basically the vatos that were rioting for Bobby took it too far. Again, they were brushing everything under the rug because they didn't want their ear smacked back. from the commission. So things that were happening there, one way or another, they were shielding it from getting out. But you guys know that's impossible. So with Mousy, they actually took it too far, and they ended up taking his life. Once they did this, it was basically responsibility time, in the sense as you hit the lockdown unit, who gave you that order, who this, and of course they turn around on Bobby because they were doing it, his deed, right, for him. Bobby says, Charles, I'm over here. I don't understand why they would do that when it was already decided that Joe was going to have that seat. I took off, so he's entitled to it, right? My presence ain't in this sardine no more because he knew better. So, you know, without going into details, you guys know what happened with the individuals, the shooters. They were done. They took it too far. But in reality, if you sit down and think, what's too far? You could run up and hit a person a couple times with a fierro, and it just takes one good hit or to hit a certain spot to take his life. So it's a gamble on its own. Within time, for those that know, Bobby would eventually get out, and kind of like a payback type of thing, he started having a lot of soldados working for him. This including Gallo from Alley Boys, that at one point did a lot of wiggling for Joe, right? So just imagine how you can hit someone upside the head with a message like that, right? And again, I don't know what he's doing, nor am I going to touch on it because it's probably an awareness thing, but he's on the street. And believe me, even where I'm at, he's tapped in. They talk real highly of him, and he has never hit Mexico. So again, I'll leave it with the question I asked at the live, right? For those that think that know what you're signing up for, do you? You see, we're pawns to a game. I was that individual trying to please a Billy like Bobby or Joe. And if needed, of course I would ram through camaradas, even though it wasn't right. Cause that's not making a homie. That's tearing down a homie over power, dope. For somebody that's jealous of the next man because they can't work together, they can't be happy for him, even though they call each other brothers. But answer me this, for those that haven't seen the live, what would you do? What would be your get out card to maintain good or not get moved on? Gonna give you an example. You're at Victorville with Bobby, right? And you're gonna go to the USP in Florida when Joe had it. So he tells you can't stay in the yard, and if you do so, it's gonna put a hit on you. It's gonna wash you up. There's a certain individual, which from the gate he's setting you up because this individual is answering to Joe that you need to hit and remove. But you got certain time to get off that yard. Right. Now you're boot up, suit up, and you're ready to boogie. You get to this yard before you even get classified. Joe already knows of the intentions because, you know, loose lips, word gets around fast, right? Everybody trying to be lambe huevos to the next Billy. Just keep it a buck. So they get at you. Basically, Joe will tell you like this: if you do anything to stop the program in a negative way, or if you move on one of my soldados, you're through. I'm gonna wash you up. You're done. So now what would you do? If you follow Bobby's rules, Joe's gonna wash you up. If you don't follow Bobby's rules, you're on a time limit. You know Bobby's gonna wash you up. Then what's your options? You call that love, respect, aprecio for camaradas, or you're just being used to poke at the next man for power that one as camarada will never have. That's a lie. Just pay attention. You know, with this, I will end here. Again, the next three will call it 4 and 6, excuse me. They will connect together. You know, I got a lot of things I could go in on Bobby and Joe, but I'll just say when I got to Pennsylvania, Sana and them were there. You guys may not believe it, but when I say it's a chess game, you know, I was aware of the mobiles coming in, of this conflict, and how many camaradas were getting hit behind this. And then, quote unquote, they were maintaining it in the shadows just from the commission, which I know is BS. They just looked away, right? Because money was being made regardless. But, you know, it was funny how Joe would sit there, conversate with another Billy, Joe, you know, Sana, X, whoever. And he would talk so positive about his carnal. I'm wanting to how one is he parole and took over the southeast. As again, I'm not speaking on that, right? For those that know Bobby, know what he's doing, and it's not my place to comment on that. It's why I'm refraining from really touching down on this. But you guys should have seen, basically, you would hear and be like, damn, how can one look at another individual and play the part good and has his right hand man hardcore politicking against Bobby and his whole people? But it is how it is. It's all a myth. It's all a lie. Don't get used. Because that's all the causa is right now. For those that play chess, pawns are meant to sacrifice. Of course, there's going to be bigger pieces to protect the king. But at the end of the day, to protect the king, sometimes you must stand in line and go. With this said, be smart, stay true to what you signed up for, which is your neighborhood, what you're born into, family, and what's going to always be there with you, which is yourself. Stay true to yourself, loyal to family. Have a great day, everyone.